Welcome to Golf Industry Guru and the Gig Podcast, where we interview the best and brightest golf and hospitality leaders on the planet. On today's episode, you will learn some proven real-world solutions that'll help you and your team solve some of your biggest golf business challenges. So stick around for some tips, tools, and training to get you, your people, and your business powered on. Here's your host, James Kronk.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Golf Industry Guru podcast. I am your host, James Kronk, and I am thrilled to bring to the Gig Nation today a man that is thoroughly involved in the marketing and the creative branding and the selling and probably many, many things within the golf and club industry from Creative Golf Marketing. Mr. Steve Graves, the president of Creative Golf Marketing. Steve, your company has been helping clubs for 30 years, and it's a who's list, really, of many of the clubs in North America. And I tell you a funny story. I have a call later on today. And I got an email from a fellow in the business in Canada that I have great respect for, Miles Mortensen. And in his email, he says, you know, we were doing some work with Creative Golf Marketing. It was fantastic. And here it is 2 hours earlier than my call with Miles. And I'm chatting with you. What a small world it is. And I'm always fascinated how the industry kind of connects in that way. So thank you so much for sharing your time with Gig Nation and for talking with me today about what is such a changing landscape in the club business. And so welcome, Steve, to the podcast.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, probably the biggest mistake that I made 30 years ago. I'm a former golf professional, so I had a leaning towards golf, was naming my company Creative Golf Marketing. I should have named my company Creative Club Marketing, because we have many city clubs, yacht clubs, tennis clubs who are reluctant, quite frankly, to talk to us because of the phrase Creative Golf Marketing. Yes.
Well, I won't bore you with the whole fact that Scott and I's vision is that one day we will be club industry guru and restaurant industry guru and hotel industry guru, tennis club industry guru. But I can tell you today we're going to talk specifically about golf and golf industry guru, because our listeners, Steve, will be owners and operators, managers, membership directors, sales and marketing people within both the private club business, the resort side of business, and really clubs all over the world. But I know you're going to tell me that the principles of good marketing and good sales and good materials is probably the same no matter what, whether you're selling a widget that's $5 or a widget that's $5,000. But before we get to that, Steve, tell me a little bit more, if you don't mind, about just about your journey and Creative Golf Marketing like 30 years ago. So you transitioned from being a golf professional manager to your own business, and what motivated you to do that? What was the impetus for that?
You know, James, it was fascinating. It was the old days of the industry. And I was 23 years old when I came to my first club as the head golf professional. And when I came there, and many of your listeners will find this difficult to believe, they asked me if I wanted to own everything. I said, I beg your pardon? I was 23 years old. I was making $600 a month as an assistant golf professional. I had no money whatsoever. But the guy I was replacing was entrepreneurial, and he owned all the concessions at this member-owned club. Sure. So they said to me, would you like to own everything? And to own everything, James, I was going to get 52 carts, bag storage, pro shop, driving range. I was going to receive 50% of the greens fee sales and 25% of the locker room.
Wow.
So I said, well, yeah, how much do you need? $110,000. This was 1980. And
yes.
So I went to a bank, and evidently my father, who was a physician, must have winked at him or something, because they put a loan in front of me for $110,000 at 21% interest.
Oh my goodness.
And I was a businessman.
Sure.
So I had to make these loan payments. And so I came to a very simple conclusion. The better the club was doing, the better I would do.
Yeah.
And so I became fixated and fascinated on having a large, robust membership, because if the club had more members, they were going to rent more carts and buy more things from me. And so I took this very significant interest. And James, I was allowed, because of my vested interest, to sit in the boardroom at a member-owned club.
Mm-hmm.
And, very few guys get in the boardroom, and I got to watch what was going on. And I'm a pretty opinionated. My wife will tell you I value my opinion. I'm not particularly shy. And so I would speak up and I would say, hey, do you really want to do that? Or do you really want to do this? So I had the privilege of having a junior golf program that had some prominence, and I started giving talks across the United States. And when I would give those talks, just like you, James, I would hear the same conversations. People would tell me that they were worried about their careers. And I'd say, just get more members. And they would go, I don't know how, and it's not my job. I would travel across the country and I would hear people talking about the concerns of their jobs. And I would say, get more members. And I would say, I don't know how, and it's not my job. I thought, well, I know how. So in 1990, I decided that I didn't want to just work at one club the rest of my life. And so I had some entrepreneurial ambition. And so I started this company. And so a club reached out to me. I reached out to a club and they said, well, we're excited. Tell us, how many clubs have you worked with? I said, well, you'll be my second. And
Yes.
So it was like, the first time you borrow money and the bank says to you, well, until you get a credit rating, we can't loan you money. And you say, well, until somebody loans me money, how am I going to, get a credit rating? And
Yes.
So fast forwarding to today, there are in the United States, there's 4,000 private clubs with golf.
Mm-hmm.
3,400 of those private clubs are member-owned clubs, 501c7, not-for-profit clubs. The other 600 are, Troon, Club Corp, individually, Arnold Palmer, Bay Hill, things of that nature. So you fast forward now 30 years, and we've worked with 1,600 of the 4,000 clubs.
Wow.
And now if you're any good at math, that would be about 50 to 60 clubs a year. So that's the type of size of organization I am. We work with about 50 to 60 private club clients a year. City clubs, yacht clubs, tennis clubs, country clubs. I would say that 95% of our clients are member-owned clubs. We have a few non-member-owned clubs, but primarily, and we've worked with clubs with zero initiation fees. And I did have a client in San Francisco, $850,000 to join. So we've worked with a large gamut. We've worked with clubs that have held Ryder Cups, PGA Championships, U.S. Opens. I've got some clubs I can't even tell you their names, and we work with little small clubs in very small communities.
And fundamentally, Steve, what do you do for them? How do you help them? What do you do for them?
Thank you, James. It's fascinating. The first phone call that came in was, we need more members. So if you use the question, how do you define success? The question, the request always was, we desperately need 50 new members. It was funny. 50 was always the number that they extrapolated that amount of financial success, and they could take a deep breath and go, okay, we'll be all right. For example, I don't know if you watched on TV this last weekend, the United States, the senior U.S. Open. It was held at Omaha Country Club, extraordinary club. They're also a client of ours. So even though they're one of the most extraordinary clubs in the country, they also found themselves wanting to, in fact, market their club. So here's my answer to a very, very good question. Most clubs initially asked us, get us 50 more members. I'm raising, one hand. I know people can't see us. The other thing that we do is we market clubs. So we do programming, which is to influence behavior. James, it's to get you as a member of the club to call my wife and myself and entice us to join the club. Some people would call that marketing. I call that programming. I call that influencing behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from a marketing standpoint, I might say to you, hey, James, thanks for the call. Do you have a brochure about the club that I could share with my wife? You know what most clubs say? No.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any collaterals. We don't have, well, you could go to the website. Yeah, James, I went to the website and all it told me was not to use my cell phone. It had dress codes. It didn't really have anything about the club. So private clubs, you and I are both of an age. The private club industry didn't market itself. Clubs didn't feel as though that they needed to. And if they did, James, it was a show of desperation. Oh, we can't do that. What will people think?
Mm-hmm.
And so the consumer of today says, tell me the story. What is it there for my family?
Mm-hmm.
And primarily golf. Primarily, they would say, tell us about the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
Medina Country Club is a former client of ours, held the Ryder Cup. And Robert Cerecci, one of the most known general managers in the country, will tell you that although they have one of the most historic and famous golf course and courses in the world, people don't join Medina for golf. It's one of the components they enjoy, but they don't join it just for golf. They have many, many other things, including just simply what you and I are doing right now, friendship, relationships, and are, looking forward to seeing each other, out at the club. So we help clubs in both the marketing of their clubs, social media, the creation of marketing materials. And many of our clients don't need more members. They just want to better represent themselves when a prospective member comes forward. They don't want to have a mimeograph sheet of paper, that says 2020 on it, cross through and with different prices. That's the old way clubs market themselves. Very
100%. Well, so I guess my question now, you must be desperate because your business must have completely dried up because obviously COVID, everyone's telling me now, that they got members, they got a lineup, they got the pandemic has completely changed the business. And so obviously that's not the case, Steve. How do you describe how the last couple of years, because we're recording this obviously in 16, 17 months after the pandemic, how do you describe how the pandemic has impacted the private club business, the golf business, the membership business?
There is a great deal of irrational exuberance going on right now, James. And you're right. No, actually, my company has been impacted. I'll be very honest. Oh, no question about it.
Because everyone thinks they know it all now.
No, they don't. A friend of mine, John Finero, who's the publisher of Boardroom Magazine, told me a comment 25, 30 years ago. We were talking about consulting, and he said, Steve, no one's going to call you unless they have pain. And you know what? The phone calls I'm getting right now, James, are the pain of too many members. Oh, we've got too many members.
Right.
How do you do waiting lists? How do you raise initiation fees?
Right.
And I'm saying to clubs, do you understand something? You didn't do anything to get this success.
Right.
If you were broken before the pandemic, you'll be broken after the pandemic. But listen, on March 15th, I flew home from Saginaw, Michigan, and I fortunately had 52 clients on March 15th, typically worth 60. James, I want all of your listeners to think about this. Can you imagine in Canada or United States if the pandemic had hit on October 1st, 2019, instead of March 1st, 2020? It would have been, in my judgment, Armageddon. Every club, because when it hit on March 1st, spring was still around the corner. There was still warmth getting ready to start. So you were sitting at home. You had just heard about the Masters was canceled. Darn. You'd heard about the NCAA were canceled. Darn. But there wasn't a foot of snow on the ground with winter right around the corner. So if COVID had hit on October 1st, I think the private club industry might have gone under. But no one wants to admit that. Everybody says, on May 1st, the world said you can walk your dog outside, swim, play tennis. Oh, but don't bend over and pick up one of those balls because there could be COVID on it. And golf. Oh, don't touch the flagpole. But you could go outside. So all of these consumers who were sitting at home, sequestered, nothing to do, no place to go, said, did you hear that, James? You can play golf. And so all of these private golf courses and all these private country clubs, the phone rang off the hook. They didn't do anything to get that success.
Correct.
They did nothing. And all of a sudden started thinking to themselves, I always say that if there's one woman in a beauty pageant or one horse in a horse race, I can pick the winner. A monopoly is easy to understand.
Yes.
But you know what's happening? My phone is now ringing because people have been vaccinated. They're on planes, and lo and behold, there's not only one thing, which is a golf course to go to, there's other things. And people are going, oh my gosh, where'd everybody go?
Yes.
So no, I went for 16 months where the phone didn't ring.
Okay.
Other
now
than
it's ringing again. And so Steve, where do you think in 2 years from now, do you think we're going to be back to where we were in 2018? Or do you think it's going to be some kind of a balancing act? I mean, what's your prediction?
Great point. I'm an eternal optimist, a very positive guy. I think if they take care of these individuals, there's a chance that the private club industry could rebound and people understand what a wonderful luxury item that it is. But here's the problem, James, that you and I have watched. The private club industry, because of this social construct that's going on right now, and I know I'm being taped and I don't want to have a cancel culture, but the private club industry started to think, we need to be for everybody. The private club industry is a luxury item. It's like first-class airfare. It's like a very expensive hotel. Not everyone can afford it. And the private club industry, back in 2008, James, initiation fees, you watched it, plummeted. When the downturn in the economy and initiation, but you know what's happened right now with COVID? Initiation fees are skyrocketing, but they're going up too fast. Clubs are taking initiation fees up based on a false momentum. It isn't momentum that they created because they have better facilities and nicer swimming pools and fitness centers. It was because there was no place for people to go.
Well, not to be insulting to anyone, but, the club industry is not known to be completely innovative on a regular basis, and ahead of the curve when it comes to, predicting the future. And that's not to say, of course, and we always generalize, we have to generalize sometimes, but we always know that there are outliers in both extremes. There are those clubs that I often find there's two people that call me, Steve, either the ones that are feeling pain or the ones that are great and want to get greater.
Right.
Because there are those clubs that are, and those managers that are constantly looking on how can we make our programs better? How can we make our facility better, our service better, our employees more happy, whatever it might be. So I think it's fascinating. So my question for you a little bit is this. So if you're a club today, whatever kind of club you are, do you think as the messaging that you're going out to consumers, if you're trying to sell a membership, you're going to attract a membership. We talk about, being clear about who you are, being clear about what separates you from the club down the street, being clear about your why, all those types of things, et cetera, et cetera. But, when you're today's consumer, today's millennial, the 30 or whatever might be, the future purchaser of a membership of a club, that luxury item, are there new messages that you think that is resonating with the consumer that's different than maybe what traditionally we would have thought is attracting people to join a club?
James, it goes back to the most simplistic human nature that there is. COVID produced fear, and it also produced people understanding how much they crave people, friendship, safety, security. And that's what private clubs had in their origination. Now, the consumer of today demands experience. They don't just want a good golf course. They want technology. They want good food. They want good wine. They want, good junior program. So clubs that are in fact recognizing the human nature side of it, which is people craving people they know, And see, this is where we get into the social construct where people say, oh, for example, diversity. I'm speaking on diversity. You know how clubs, in my professional opinion, need to be diverse? Get more young members, because young people are more diverse than old people are. And the more young members you get, the more your club will trend towards diversity. But you can't just force diversity.
No.
But clubs right now are calling me up and saying, how can we become more diverse? Oh, but by the way, we don't want a bunch of young members because they don't pay as much and they're using up too much of the golf course. And I'm saying, you can't have best of both worlds.
No. At some point, you have to accept tattoos. That's my opinion.
Yes.
At some point, you got to just embrace it.
James, we're still talking about denim.
Yeah.
We're still talking about whether you can use a cell phone or denim. Yeah. And people want to talk about the complexity of diversity.
So let me ask you that question, Steve. So I love that point, first of all, which is that it's about community, and if we've ever worked at a club that's successful or worked with a club that has a cohesive membership, they have a great sense of community. There's no doubt about it.
Correct.
And so you obviously get a chance. One of the things I tell people when they talk to me about helping their club is I say, the reason why you hire a guy like me is you can fire a guy like me, because I'm going to tell you things that your general manager is not going to tell you, because if they told you the same thing, you'd fire him.
You fire her. Exactly.
Or her.
Yeah. We bring that inconvenient truth.
Yeah. And so what do you, so from a governance standpoint, when you're going into clubs and helping them talk about getting better and identifying their why, or addressing their cell phone policy, or their belief about juniors, and et cetera, do you see a change in the way that clubs are now empowering CEOs and COOs and general managers? Do you see that? Because I think that's one of the most critical things that's happening. And I also believe, by the way, that there's a decline in volunteerism in society. I think that there's a lot of people now that don't have 20 hours a month to donate freely to their club and to their greens committee, and so they like to just make sure the super knows what he's doing and go from there. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yes, what great observations and factual observations. The private club industry is slowly trending toward a business model where board members are creating. They're saying, this is what we want to be, and they're creating standards, and then they're monitoring whether the team is in fact adhering to and accomplishing those standards. And my point is if that team doesn't do it, get rid of them and get somebody else in, but don't start volunteering. Don't start going out on the say you'll mow greens and be on the social committee. So yes, you're starting to see, because of what you described so well, James, that people don't have the time for this. They're willing to attend a board meeting. They're willing to look at the financials. They're willing to evaluate performance of standards and have a 1 hour meeting versus a 5 hour meeting. And the more they do that, the more clubs and general managers, golf, they're getting better educated. They're being better at and when clubs say, do your job and you'll keep your job, then the general manager says, okay, let me do my job. And if I don't, fire me. But one of the reasons I left the business was as a general manager, I told a club president, I won't fail with your ideas. I'll fail with mine, but I won't fail with yours. And so I said, you tell me what you want, and then I'll go do it. And if I don't do it the way you want me to, then get rid of me. And we're seeing here, and I'm assuming you are in Canada as well, in North America, we're seeing more of that mentality in the boardroom. Well,
and I think what I see, what I hear around the water cooler is that if you're a progressive manager that is seeking an opportunity to be a leader, it's a great opportunity to be in the club business these days. If you, however, are someone that needs the board to tell you whether to turn left or turn right, you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to, if you're constantly, if you think that it's their job to paint the vision or how to get there, well, I think you're going to have a difficult time because, there's 9 different people that have a different version about whether French fries are crispy or not. Right. And that's just that's not a business that can work. And I think that's one of the fundamental things that impacts our industry is that we don't often treat it enough like it's a business. You would never run Ford Motor Company the way that we run sometimes a $10 million private club. I
think that the part that from my side of it, and I've had people that, maybe get a little upset at me as a dinosaur in the industry, to it is the industry keeps looking for the easy button. I had a heart attack 2 years ago, open heart surgery. It's all done. Everything's great. And so I lost weight. There was only one way to lose weight. I ate better and I exercised. Mm-hmm. Well, today, 2 years and 2 months later, I now am 7 pounds heavier than the day I had my heart attack because I've quit eating right and I've quit exercising. Mm-hmm. And the private club industry, I cannot hire a personal trainer to work out while I eat donuts and think I'm going to lose weight. I hire a personal trainer to, in fact, tell me how to do things right. That's a membership director. A membership director doesn't sell memberships. They, in fact, facilitate the sale of leads, referrals, etc. Mm-hmm. The private club industry keeps thinking that you can lose weight by eating a pill. You gain more members by engaging the members to participate in the invitation process of their club. And I purposely use the word invitation. Hey, James, this is Steve. How you doing? Good, James. Good, Steve. Hey, James, I'd like to have you join my club. Hey, it's $25,000. I can get you in for $20,000. The dues are $1,100 a month. What do you think? And so you go, well, Steve, and then I go, hey, James, how are the kids? We start talking weather, sports, and our conversation is over. And both of us think to ourselves, boy, that was awkward. Boy, that was uncomfortable. And so me as a member of the club thinks I'm never doing that again because the club forced me to sell a membership.
Okay.
What we believe in is me calling up you and going, James, I love you like a brother. How are the kids? How's your wife? Great. Hey, I'd love to invite you to consider, being a member of the club. We've got some really enjoyable strategies that allows you to try it out, see the club, make sure you fit in. There's an initiation fee, but the initiation fee is something that you take care of later when you determine that the club's for you. Now, there's a pretty good chance you're going to say, that's something I could tell my wife.
Yeah. Tell me more.
And so you say, tell me more. And then you say to me, hey, do you have some collateral materials? I say, oh, by the way, James, I can forward you a link that's got a beautiful flipping book that tells you all about it. So what our job is to give the members all of the tools that overcome the objections that are psychologically there when a person talks to a friend about selling a membership. And then I know the objections that you're going to say to me. So we design strategies that overcome those objections. So when ultimately this conversation, and you say, hey, Steve, please send me some information. And I hang up, I think to myself, shoot, I liked that. I think I'll invite Bob. Mm-hmm. Anytime a human being has success, they want to, in fact, do it again. And anytime they have failure, they will never do it again.
Yeah. No. So Steve, is that, and you do that through focus groups? You do that through video training? Like how do you engage the members? Well, because here's my question for you. I don't want someone taking my 10 a.m. tea time on Saturday morning. I have enough trouble getting my 10 a.m. tea time anyway. And by the way, that bar stool in the corner of the bar, that's my seat. I don't want some brand new guy with a tattoo sitting in my bar seat. So how do you get the members to engage in that promotional process? How do you get them to understand the value and the importance of it?
1,600 clubs. We've had a kickoff of the marketing initiative 1,598 times. I've had 2 clubs that I didn't personally stand in front of the membership. One is a club, I can't tell you their name. They just didn't want to have a kickoff. And one, there was a snowstorm where I couldn't make the flight, and otherwise we would have had the kickoff.
Right.
Because, James, here's what happens. I stand at the podium. I tell them, oh, by the way, I'm a former golf professional. I'm a former general manager. And by the way, I know there's people out here in the audience who don't want to give up their 8 o'clock tee time and don't want to give their bar stool up. And I'm able to say that's actually irrational because the club needs more members to survive, fund capital projects, and et cetera.
Right.
But the general manager can't say what I say because the guy who doesn't want to lose the 8 o'clock tee time wants him fired.
Right.
I get to stand, and when I stand at that podium, now I've been doing it now on Zoom calls like this for the past year. I say, oh, by the way, let me name my clients.
Yes,
and I name clubs of pedigrees that are above theirs, and they go, holy cow, those clubs needed to do this. And my answer is all private clubs in North America today, and actually worldwide, are no longer the aspirational desired product that they were in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So all clubs, regardless of pedigree, with the exception of Augusta National, and some clubs, they say their names, and I go, by the way, that club's actually a client of mine. So there's some clubs with pedigrees that you would think that never ask for help that have golf courses that are fabulous, but it doesn't sell memberships.
Yeah.
So go ahead. So one of the things we do that almost no other company does, we have town hall meetings and we hold hands and we sing every verse of Kumbaya.
Yeah.
And we talk about what's good for the club.
Yes.
And we get away from that individual who has an agenda that they don't care about the club. But let me tell you a quick story.
Please.
COVID. One of the questions you talked about was what's happened with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a club, very elite club, and I brought up the fact that the club, but I used the word tee times. Club president said to me, wait a minute, we don't have tee times. He goes, and if you bring up tee times one more time, this meeting is over. We don't have tee times. So I'm a fairly abrupt guy. I know what I'm doing. And so I said, oh, excuse me, sir, I didn't mean to offend you. I let 30 minutes go by, and I turned to him and I said, and I happened to be a doctor. I said, doctor, do you play golf on Saturday? He goes, every Saturday. I said, what time do you play? He goes, 8 o'clock. I said, every Saturday, 8 o'clock. He goes, yeah. I said, sounds like you've got a tee time. Yeah. I said, you just don't want an even playing field. You're not against tee times as long as you get the tee time.
Right.
Well, COVID created the need for tee times. They needed structure. They needed to know when people were going to come so they could be on the driving range, go to the tee, and have people not get sick.
Yeah.
So as tee times came into some of the most elite clubs, you know what clubs said? We like it.
Yeah.
We like it. So COVID has brought around change, sometimes change that certain people with agendas didn't want.
Yes, it's so true. Well, and I think that, this is what we found in a couple of the clubs that we kind of managed was that, COVID allowed an excuse to implement things that you always wanted to do.
Yes.
But you couldn't really get everyone to buy in, get on the bus. And,
yes.
and then you, like you said, I always say, the reason why we do surveys is because I need to be able to say to Mr. Jones, well, I know you don't like the salad sandwich, but 95% of the people do. So guess what? It's staying, right. Whatever it is.
Right.
So you're listening to this podcast. You're an operator of a club. You're the general manager of a club. You're the whatever, the director of golf, whatever your role is. And you're going to go out today and you're going to improve the experience that's going to attract more members. And so I wanted to ask you, when you're working with these kinds of clubs and clients and you don't have Augusta National is your track,
right.
you don't have a 45,000 square foot building with a pool attached and you're not spending 30 grand on building pickleball courts. You are just who you are and what you are. So what do you think are some of the ways that an operator should be looking at improving their club? And you touched on a little bit before about the fact that people are looking for that sense of community and that inclusion. And we know that there's always some clubs that have some fantastic events and things like that. But what's the conversation that you have and the questions that you ask a club when you're trying to identify their experience model?
The first thing I ask them is, tell me something unique about your club. You know what I tell everybody, James? I own the largest, most successful membership marketing firm in the United States. You know why? Because I say so. Yeah, and until somebody else says so, I win.
Yes.
So find, what is unique about your club? I worked with one club in Napa Valley Country Club, and the general manager said, we have the finest wine list in the world. I said, fabulous. Sing it from the rooftops.
Yes.
So what do you have that's unique, that you feel that, you can tell, that the members can talk? Maybe it's your apple pie. Maybe it's a margarita. It can be.
It doesn't need to be expensive.
No.
I know I've got a client that makes their own honey and turns it into a beer. And so, it's their signature beer. It's the member. When the member brings a guest to the bar, all they say is, you've got to have
our beer
because it's made with our own honey that we, have the bees do on hole number 17. So having something unique.
Exactly, because when people are at cocktail parties and events and et cetera, they're always looking for subject matters of discussion. And so if you and I are sitting there and we've quit talking about sports and we've quit talking about weather, I'm able to say, you're not going to believe the beer we've got at our club. I mean, it's unbelievable. That can be as simply of, you're not going to believe, what a good junior program we have. What a great, I ask all clubs, are you a family club? And they always go, yes. And then I ask them again and they go, not really. So one of the things that you want to be is a family club. You want to take care of husbands, wives, children. You want to, in fact, be an all-inclusive offering. And the more you take care of spouses and children, and I purposely use the word spouse because I don't want to offend, by saying women and kids, but those are the two parts of society that, listen, when you ask a guy, I did a seminar, James, and the name of the seminar was "No Man Has Ever Quit a Private Club." Can you imagine how many guys ever walked into the kitchen and said to their wife, honey, I've been thinking about it. How much are we really using the club?
Yes.
That conversation has never occurred.
No.
It's when the woman comes home from the club and starts complaining about how the kids were treated at the pool and they didn't have something for her. The guy goes, here it comes.
Yeah.
Here it comes.
Yeah.
So a club needs to understand that they need to never let logic overcome emotion. Once logic starts to kick in and people start thinking about how much a round of golf costs them versus dues, they want to have an emotional part at their club. And emotion is always people, friendships, and unique experiences, things that people are proud of that they can tell their friends about, at their club. I happen to, my origination in the industry was junior golf. I had the first Pee-wee program in the United States. I was written up on over my file folder over there, USA Today newspaper, front page.
Wow.
Front page. Now it was a line that big. It was in the sports section of the front page.
Yes.
Steve Graves, golf pro at Manhattan Country Club, first, Pee-wee program, kids 6 and under, and Ben Hogan supported me.
Right.
All everybody wanted to talk about was our Pee-wee program.
Sure.
So it became the talk of the town that we had kids who were under 6 years old who were being taught golf. Now that concept is nationwide now, so it no longer is as unique. But back in 1980, it was pretty unique. So our club got a lot of notoriety. And you know what people came up to me and said? I understand you love kids. I said, I love kids, my members' kids.
Yes.
I said, I don't love your kids.
Yes.
I love my members' kids. And they said, could my kid be in your Pee-wee program? Are you a member? No. So people had to join.
Yes.
And you and I both know, you take care of my kids, I'll give you any amount of money you want.
Yes, exactly.
You take care of my wife, I'll give you any amount of money that you want.
And so, Steve, do you believe then that, do you believe then that any club, and let me rephrase that, every club needs to have a welcoming environment for the entire family?
Yes.
Or yes, no matter whether you're a 7,700 yard, par 72, slope index nightmare,
yes,
that you've got to be able to embrace the inclusive family, right?
Because there's only two people if there's a husband, a wife, and children, you cannot embarrass a man. But the second you embarrass a woman or children, it's done.
Right.
So you have that welcoming orientation, and you let that person, those individuals, understand how to feel comfortable. Membership directors play a great role in the orientation and the comfort factor of the most vulnerable part of a societal family. Mm-hmm. And it still right now is, and there's many women who will get upset about this, who are unbelievably professional, but they still find themselves when they get to a club a little bit concerned about the rules, a little bit concerned about, what to wear, what can the kids bring, etc. And so you have a welcoming environment. And if you don't have a welcoming environment at Augusta National, it's going to have some sort of lifespan.
Yes.
Without, I don't care. No facility is forever without a welcoming environment.
Yeah, I love that. I said it was the last question, but it wasn't the last question. I got one more question for you. So you've worked with, thousands of managers, leaders. What do you think is the skill? What do you think is a trait that leads to being successful? And I want to talk about the private club business in particular, because we've got lots of listeners that are in the private club business and want to be successful in the private club business. First of all, they're smart because they pick up the phone and they call you, because you one of the things you have to have is the willingness to know that you don't know everything. You have, to be successful in this business, you have to realize that you always need to get better and learn. But in your experience, in the GM, CEOs, the club managers that you've come across, what's a trait that you feel is consistent with those managers that run, that get to the point where they have a happy, successful, thriving club?
Two things. Number one, it's okay to ask for help. Mm. And number two, that the industry is more comprehensive and complex than most members and board members want to give it credit. Mm. James, when the private club industry originated, every private club was the best of everything in their town. It had the best food. It had the best golf course. It had the only pool. It had They were the gold standard of the community. Everybody aspired for everything the club had because it was the most sophisticated, and there was. Think of the industry right now. The world now has got all of these offshoots where people get really good at really small, take fitness. Mm-hmm. Is any club fitness program ever going to be able to be good as LA Fitness? No. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No. So the fitness center at a private club is never as good as the best fitness center in the United States or in Canada. Mm-hmm. But you still need to have a fitness center. Mm-hmm. But you need to ask for help to make sure your fitness center is as good as it possibly can be, given the size that it is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So as general managers look and realize how complex everything is at their club, that asking for professional assistance is not a show of weakness. When a golf course has trouble on the greens, they don't go to the local hardware store and ask some guy that's got a pretty yard. They call the United States Golf Association. Right. They call the Canadian Golf Association. Yeah. They ask for professional assistance.
Yes.
And this is not a plug for you or me. It's just, when I had my heart attack.
Yeah.
You know what?
Didn't do it yourself?
I didn't ask the guy, at the club that says he's pretty, I didn't ask the dentist to help me out.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's so true. And I would agree with you. It's not, and I would spin it a little bit in the sense, of course, it's not a plug. We will always come across people that that have pain points or people that need help. But I think it's an attitude of one of the people that I've learned the most from. When I've watched them, they're constantly evolving. They're constantly learning. They're constantly looking at, I always talk about this all the time. You can't get better if you don't have a critical eye. So you can't, if you walk to your club thinking that, everything's fantastic and perfect and the members are completely satisfied and your staff are completely satisfied. And so there's nothing else to do. You might as well go home and get on the couch. Well, obviously, you're going to get on the couch for a long time at some point because you have to constantly be looking at how do we make things better. And I think that asking for help is just one of those ways to say, how can we be better and how can I make the club better? How can I make my members happier?
And I stole this line from exactly what you were just saying, James. You don't have to be sick to get better. You don't have to wait until you're sick and then worry about how to get better. The best clubs are in fact, doing wonderfully. And this is where they can take COVID and have it be their friend. And instead of trying to shun people because the golf course is a little bit crowded right now, but right now courses are not crowded. Once July 4th hit, people are on vacations. These golf courses are not as crowded because there's other things to go do. Now is the time to take a deep breath and try to figure out how to continue to get better experiences, for your members, taking care of. Let me give you a statistic. It's more illustrative. We think that 40% of all private club members, James, are 80% users of their club. We have many clients like yourself who nod and say, that makes sense. So if you think about it, you know who most clubs try to take care of? The 40%ers. They're never quitting. You can't get rid of them if you tried.
Correct. Yeah.
So if you reverse that means that 60% of a private club membership are 20% users of the club. They own a boat, they travel, they have other things outside, they've got grandchildren. So those are the people who are quitting clubs. So those are the people that clubs need to focus more attention on, of what are they looking for? What needs do they have? What type of menu item would they like to see? But very few clubs are focusing on that group. They're focusing on the people that are easier to talk to, the people who are out at the club every single day. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great stat. And it's a great perspective because when you walk in the door every day, we always, it's like us. When I get to my computer, whatever emails are there is what I start dealing with. What I don't do enough of is spend an hour and a half planning on where's my business going to come 2 months from now or 3. This is when you start working for yourself, you learn that pretty quickly that it's doing the current work, but mostly it's making sure you're investing in the future work. And if you don't do that, you're not going to have any. Steve, speaking of that, how can people get in touch with you? How can they reach out to you and talk to you a little bit more about how creative golf marketing can help their club be successful, not just in 2021, but in 2031 and beyond?
Well, thank you. And one of the things that we're very fortunate about as a marketing company is all we do, James, is we produce money. So we're a company that every time we work with a club, more people join than they had before. It's new income that they otherwise would not have had themselves. So, and I'm old enough and I've been in the business long enough that I just enjoy having an environment where the general manager is happy, the staff is happier, because as more members come into a club and the economics are there, everybody's in a better mood. So we have a website, of course, www.creativegolfmarketing.com. They can, give me a call, at, 785-537-8877. And the reason I did that is I could give my 800 number, which I will, 800-526-8794, but it doesn't work in Canada, so I gave the other number, and Steve at creativegolfmarketing.com. It would be my pleasure to help anybody. Just if you have questions, give me a call, email me. I will answer your questions at no charge, of course, and tell you what we're seeing in the industry, and help you to be more successful.
Well, and thank you, Steve. I mean, I know you're a regular contributor to conferences, a speaker, an author, and you share your knowledge and your wisdom with freely. And I think that's a wonderful trait. It's obviously, and one of the reasons why you've been so desired and successful over the last 30 years. So
thank you, James.
I really appreciate your giving Gig Nation some time today. I invite all of our listeners to follow up with you, and I look forward to having you on again, because I think that this topic and the topic of marketing and memberships, let's hope that in 2 years' time we're not having a podcast about the drastic decline of memberships at clubs, and that everyone takes this opportunity to capture as many future customers as they possibly can.
Let me give you a cute. My wife is from Oklahoma in the oil business in Oklahoma. She's not, but Oklahoma has a lot of oil. We were down there recently, and there was a bumper sticker that said, "Please, Lord, give us one more oil boom, and we won't screw this one up." I'm using a different phrase. And what I'm afraid of, James, is the private club industry. A couple years from now, there's going to be a bumper sticker that says, "Please, Lord, give us one more member boom, and we won't screw this one up."
Yeah.
Because you hate to say that COVID has had anything positive, because it's been horrible.
Yes.
But it's been helpful to the golf industry.
Yes.
And it's given the golf industry a boost. And I encourage people to be part of the Gig Nation and to use the resources that you're bringing to them. And the amount of money that it costs to be part of your organization is minuscule in the return that they get on the information, the knowledge, and quite frankly, the courage. The people are so afraid of the wrong decision, they're making no decisions.
That's a great quote.
So as they go onto your resources, it gives them the courage. As they hear the same thing over and over and over again, they say, "Oh my gosh, that actually must really work." So I encourage your followers and your subscribers to use your service, to in fact use all of the resources that you bring to them, because it will allow them to make much better decisions and be more confident in their decisions that they give to their owners or to their board members or even to their team. So I compliment you on what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve. Thanks. I mean, like anything, I think our industry is adapting. We're more interested in learning than we've ever been, and we're being forced by our staff that want to be trained better or trained in different ways. So it's all that stuff. So once again, thank you for your time, Steve.
Thank you, James.
Loved having you. And once again, everybody, thanks for listening to this Gig podcast, and we'll see you on the inside.
Thanks for listening to the Gig Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and mostly that you learned a few things that will help you improve your business. Join us next time as we continue to bring you the best and brightest golf and hospitality leaders on the planet. Thanks for listening.